Yo, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of the Sauce. Continuing on with college football week 2. Got a great game here. Well, it's a great game if you like defense, which I do. I mean, I always enjoy watching this game. As far as betting, it's challenging. It's challenging to find angles in this one, but it's going to be a fun one. Iowa State, Iowa. Let's go.
Welcome to the Sauce. The Sauce. Hey, get the sauce.
All right, like I said, Iowa State, Iowa. This one's at Kinnick. Hawkeyes are short home dogs here. You can get an expensive 2.5 or a cheap 3. Total sitting at 35.5, which is pretty on par with what we expect in this rivalry, Iowa State versus Iowa. As far as head-to-head history, Iowa has had the Clones number here. 7-1 in their last 8 matchups against Iowa State. Against the spread, though, Iowa State has covered 3-3 in the last 6. And you know what? Clones' last trip to Kinnick, they won outright, 10-7 back in 2022. So the Clones have won their last trip to this stadium. So let's get into this one, and we'll start with the returning production. Ton of it on both sides. Iowa 10th in the country in overall returning production, 10 starters back on offense. Iowa State first in the country in returning production, also 10 starters back on offense. So both these teams bringing back a ton of pieces from last year. And the reason this total's down to 35.5. It's not just because these two teams have elite defenses, which they do. It's also because these two teams run the slowest paces known to man. Iowa State 130th in pace of play last year. Iowa 128th. So not only are we seeing two elite defenses against two questionable offenses, but we're also seeing two teams that run incredibly slow paces. So let's start off by looking at the Iowa State offense. Passing numbers were pretty solid last year. 18th in yards per pass attempt. 84th in success rate isn't great, but 12th in effective pass. Obviously, I'm sure you know by now, Rocco Becht ended up being the starter just due to what happened in the offseason. Iowa State lost their quarterback, Deckers, and an offensive lineman just weeks before the season due to a gambling scandal. So Becht ended up being the starter, and he was awesome. He was the Big 12 Freshman of the Year, 2,674 passing yards, over 8 yards per pass attempt, 20 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. Solid-looking numbers here. He looked damn near perfect in the first game of the season. 267 yards, over 10 yards per attempt, 2 touchdowns, no picks. So off to a solid start. Granted, it was against North Dakota, an FCS program, but as far as FCS programs go, North Dakota isn't bad at all. The problem with the week 1 game wasn't Rocco Becht or the passing attack. It was a lack of rushing attack. 23 carries, 86 rushing yards on just 3.9 yards per carry. And this is a team that struggled to run the ball last year. I mean, this team really misses Breece Hall. I'll say that. Struggling to run the ball. Looks like it's going to be another tough year as far as running the ball. So how exactly do we expect Iowa State to run the ball on the road at Kinnick? This is Iowa. I mean, arguably the best defense in the country. They probably were last year. First in yards per play allowed, 11th in success rate, 5th in PPA, elite against the run, elite against the pass, and it was on display in the opener. Illinois State couldn't do anything, just 189 yards of total offense in the game, 4.6 yards per pass attempt, 1.7 yards per carry. Now, it's Illinois State, but still, Iowa bringing back a ton of production. They only lost 1 starter on the defensive side. Well, actually, I think it was 2 starters on the defensive side of the ball. No question, this is going to be one of the best, if not the best defense in the country yet again. Here are the numbers from last year. I mean, 15 points per game allowed. 15. Look at that success rate, 32.6% PPA. 4.06 yards per play on the season is just nuts. So yeah, this Iowa Hawkeyes defense is as good as advertised. It's going to be rough sledding for the Iowa State offense, especially with a questionable run game. Rocco Becht's going to have to be damn near perfect to move the ball in Iowa in this one. Now, we can look at last year's game. Iowa got the win on the road. Clones were home in that one. They lost 20-13. They did outgain Iowa, though, 290-235, and that's kind of the kicker here. 290 yards, and you still outgained Iowa last year. So based on the pace of this game, the fact that both defenses should be in control, you do not need to have an offensive explosion to win this game. So I wouldn't exactly rule Iowa State out just because you don't think their offense is going to move the ball. Because on the other side, Iowa's offense, I mean, first of all, it was one of the worst offenses in college football last year. Dead last in yards per play. So we just talked about how awesome it was. They held opponents to just over 4 yards per play on defense. They averaged the least amount of yards per play in the FBS. That includes Conference USA schools, Sun Belt schools. 134th, 133rd in success rate, 133rd in PPA. Now, to be fair, this is a new era in Iowa football. Brian Ferentz is gone. Head coach's son was the OC for a few years there, heavily criticized. He's gone. Tim Lester come in to take over the offense, and in the opener, let's give him some credit. Cade McNamara was completing some passes, over 250 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, over 8 yards per pass attempt. That game was a little weird. I mean, 40-0, I believe, was the final score. It was 6-0 at halftime. So for a few drives there at halftime, I mean, it was looking like, oh, doesn't matter. Brian Ferentz has gone same old Iowa, but they definitely started making some plays in the second half, which is, if you're an Iowa fan, a sigh of relief, because I don't even know if Iowa fans could have dealt with another season of that. Here are their offensive numbers in the game. 492 yards of total offense, which is just unusual to see from Iowa. Over 8 yards per pass attempt, 6 yards per carry. Everything was great. But we got to mention that was Illinois State, and now they're going to see the Iowa State defense. And when we pull up Iowa State's defensive numbers from last year, yeah, I mean, they don't look nearly as good as Iowa's. This is a very good defense, but about 35-40 in the country. The thing is, just like Iowa, they bring everyone back. 9 starters back on the defensive side of the ball. So I expect the Iowa State defense to jump from about 35 up into the top 15. Obviously, we don't have a ton to go by here. They only played North Dakota. 295 yards allowed in that game, 4 yards per pass. 4.1 yards per carry is a little concerning, but it's North Dakota. I wouldn't take too much away from it. No question, I expect Iowa's defense to be elite this year, which is why I refuse to lay points with either team in this game. This is going to be a punt fest. Both defenses are going to control this one. 14-13 is live here as a possible final score. Total's at 35.5. I'd still go under, so I'd lean under. But as far as what I bet, I took Iowa State. I got it at +2.5 at +100. You can get a 3 now at -120, -125. So you can get an expensive 3. Obviously, wish I would have waited and got the 3. I didn't think it was going to move that way. But I'm pretty cool on my Iowa State +2.5 at +100. Now, if you watch the show, you know I'm a little biased. I'm a Matt Campbell fan. I think he's a great head coach, and I like this Iowa State program. I'm not a fan of the team or anything, but I do root for them. So I'm a little biased here, but I think Iowa State's going to win back-to-back games in Kinnick. +2.5. Give me the Clones. If you want to see all the bets I currently have open, head over to KyleKirms.com and click on Open Bets. You'll see mine as well as everyone on the staff. All their open bets are there. Also, when you sign up to Sauce Network Plus, it comes with access to the Discord, and you get to participate in the weekly betting league. Starts on Thursday for week 1. There's a new champion every week. $150 and a handicapping trophy go to the winner every single week. So if you're interested in that, head over to KyleKirms.com and sign up. Let's have our live shows. 10 a.m. Eastern time on Saturday is the big one. We'll go through every single game on the board, 10 a.m. up to kickoff Eastern time. Weekdays, 4 p.m. Eastern time. If you're able to make it, we'd love to see you in the comments. Let's have ourselves a nice week 2. Week 1 did not really go my way, although I did like that Florida State-Boston College under there on Monday night. That was a nice way to finish it off. But overall, week 1 didn't go my way. Let's bounce back. Remember to bet responsibly. Talk to you in the Discord.